Yeah, I think, Neffy,
Suzanne.
we need some guidance on how. 'cause
Right, so on those projects, on the list of projects that Mr. Alday is talking about, we do have quad sheets for that will have further detail, and we can include that in the memo. We can provide you those quad sheets for those projects that are on the unfunded list, because we have those and includes all the information you're asking for.
Is it too much to ask for y'all to score them based on the criteria?
We can provide that scoring.
Could you score them?
Yes.
That would be helpful. At least we would.
Yeah, apple to apples.
We would at
Certainly.
least have something to look at based on,
Yes.
if you can, on the
Yeah,
ones that you
on
have
those lists,
details.
those that Mr. Alday is talking about, we have quad sheets and we can score them. And we will provide that with the memo.
Chris Steves, District 9. I just want to make sure we're talking about, and I counted them about 11 below the line projects that we're talking about. The North New Braunfels.
Well, there's some more coming.
More
I understand. We have a couple, 4 down here that are coming that will have to be put into the mix. And sir, did you put in the Coville extension, the Valley High?
No, I have it right here.
Okay, perfect. We'll have that one as well.
Okay, but we'll have a sheet with all the, so we're not just guessing around. We'll have a sheet with.
I'm hoping that the city will put these all together in a list with the scoring. That's a supplemental list that we can begin to at least look at with the best available knowledge. We understand this is fast and furious, but at least if there's some apples to apples, Rod, that we can help us prioritize below the line. I mean, I think the bond stuff, it looks like that's going to stay. We're really worried about, kind of prioritizing if other funds become available, because I know Eric has talked about the potential of other funding opportunities. You may get federal dollars coming in. And so we're really very concerned about making sure that this committee can weigh in on those other priorities.
We'll do that. And once again, we do highly recommend that if you do have projects, that you do send them to us as potential items that you want to consider for below the line or whatever the amendment may be, so that we can put it out to everybody and all of you can have enough time to mull those over and decide if that's something that you want to support at the next meeting.
Leo D4. On the bus tour, will we be shown the areas that are proposed for public art?
They don't have them
I
identified.
don't think they know that yet. That is not known.
Just like the general areas, or?
Yeah, so just for clarity, that each project won't necessarily have a piece of public art integrated, right? So the public art funds are pooled and there are regional public art projects spread throughout the district. So with the funding that's proposed, I think there's up to 1 or 2 per district across the bond, not just from this funding and drainage, if that makes sense.
But in the date for the.
Bianca, District 7, to your point, there's 5 projects that are on our drainage list that are also pooling money for public art in the streets category. So if we made a recommendation not to fund public art in our category, they could potentially still get public art. And to the point that was made about that money gets pooled, it doesn't necessarily touch the drainage project per se. That drainage project may leverage a lot of money, and it could be a project that's done at like Woodlawn Lake for Sealy Channel. It's not necessarily really close, but it's in the general vicinity per se. So just to give you an example, that's why I asked, are there any drainage projects we're going to see that have public art? We have one, Sealy Channel, but that was a fight. So I also had a question for staff. Are any of the staff recommended projects eligible for ARPA funding? That's federal funding that has, it is eligible for drainage projects. It may not be staff's recommendation that ARPA funds be used for drainage, but are there any projects on staff's recommendation that would be eligible to meet the ARPA criteria? Thank you.
Answer is no. Otherwise, we wouldn't recommend.
You never know till you ask.
Rozzy, can you explain that? Because we have had a few people ask about that ARPA funding could be used for drainage. Is there a particular restriction as to why not here in San Antonio? I've had several people ask me that same question.
Our knowledge is ARPA funding you can use for any revenue city lost during the COVID. Building project is not really revenue lost through the COVID.
Okay.
I would differ in opinion. It says infrastructure on there. I don't know. I've read the federal requirements for the ARPA funding, so that's why I'm asking that question. Drainage is eligible. There are other cities in Texas that are spending all their ARPA money on drainage. That's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you. Just some housekeeping. So on December 8th, it looks like that will be the deadline for submitting proposed resolutions and things. That way it can be collected and then redistributed with time for everyone to read them and prepare for them.
So we would ask that if you have because we can't communicate with each other, you have to communicate directly with the city staff. So if you have a particular motion that you want to make regarding process or any of the other things, you need to submit that, I guess, Stephanie, or to Stephanie. And then she will kind of put those together and then we'll, look at them as a group when we come together we'll send them out in advance, but then we'll start taking action on them on the 15th. Now, as it relates to the projects, that's going to be a little bit more challenging until we get the information from the city on the prioritization of those. We may need to wait on that until we kind of all come together again once we have the information. But if there are other particular actions, those are definitely important to bring forward, recommendations. And also on your project request, we do want all those in no later than Friday. But if you can get them in today or tomorrow, the sooner the better, because obviously, as you've already heard tonight on multiple occasions, the city, it takes them time to do the evaluations. And if we really want to have the information necessary for us to make the best informed decisions we can, it's the sooner the better for them to get to that. Okay. Anything else that anyone has? Yes, sir.
Christopher D8 again. Along those lines, I want to first show support for our friends over in D5 and their idea for a standing committee, especially because we're at this unique point in national history where there's a huge infusion potentially coming down the pike. And it would be great if we have the public engagement infrastructure together to guide the city on drainage infrastructure so that we will be ready to go if there is any time-sensitive limitations on those things.
Yes, sir. And, a lot of you have brought that up as we were having our individual district meetings. And the ideas that have come up related to that are the fact that there is so much need for drainage. And everyone's said that over and over and over again. And, looking at it holistically, we have the new maps coming in that's been talked about several times. We have watershed master plans that have been developed. How is this? There's a lot of desire to have more time for people to understand the dynamics of how flooding works from upstream to downstream. How does the city look at this more holistically? So having that opportunity to have more time to get more informed, as well as to have more citizen involvement process, other than just, 2 meetings every 5 years with a bond project, really would help, I think, get more information out there. So that's been something that has been shared among all of you in all the various meetings, that there is a definite desire to have more public input into this process of drainage projects, not only those for the bonds, but then those that could potentially be funded through, city allocations, regional stormwater funds, any kind of federal funds, any collaborative efforts between the city and the county, anything that could have those priorities known. So I know all of you have brought that up, and I think that we'll put that in the form of some type of a motion that we can bring to the committee as a recommendation. I mean, as was said earlier, parks, there's a standing parks citizen committee. There's standing committees in other areas that advise the city on one thing or another, but there's really not a standing committee on flood and drainage issues.
One final comment. I was at the housing meeting last night, and they're a unique committee because they don't have a list of concrete projects that they have to focus on. So they're coming up with aspirational values and guiding principles that they're going to offer to the city council. But I think that's a model for us that we can offer also, in addition to our prioritization list of what we think they should be considering and what they should recommend that staff should keep in mind moving forward, especially well, whether the committee gets created or not. So there is some sort of written recommendations that would reflect the comments that we've heard and the information that we've been taking in and digesting. If we can concentrate it, and if people can add those to the suggestions and the resolutions, then maybe that will be something we can chew on and be prepared for come meeting number 4.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think that's one of the things that came up a lot during the meetings we had with the different districts. I understand staff was given the criteria of scoring for every single bond category, but it kind of didn't match because you have, I mean, how do you score a drainage project the same way you would a facilities project? You know, there are different criteria, different things. Feasibility for drainage doesn't necessarily match feasibility for, let's say, parks. You know, and then housing, that was you know, we just heard, it's totally different. They have a totally different criteria. And I know a lot of things a lot of people were saying was especially the public health rating, that these are people's homes being flooded, you know, emergency vehicles can't make it to where they need to go. Yet the public health rating was in the mid-range kind of, and it kind of didn't match. So that's something, you know, when you're writing your resolutions to start and your motions to start thinking about inputting.
All right, well, I think we've had some good conversation tonight. We're coming up on our time. We have about 5 minutes or so, a little over 5 minutes. Is there anything else that the committee would like to share tonight? Can we get a show of hands of who's going to be showing up on Saturday for the tour, just to kind of get a sense of, they can get a number of how many people are showing up? Okay, great, good turnout. Thank y'all. Yes,
I got one
Caleb.
more thing. So it seems like we've all had this idea of having a future committee, and this is my first time being able to serve on a committee and for the bond. It seems like the previous committees would have had this idea too. Is that something that's been like thought of before and just never was followed through on, or just to make sure we have a little bit of background on that, on how we can, you know, maybe make sure it does get followed through at this time?
Suzanne, Patrice from District 10. Can I talk about the WIAC or?
Sure.
So Suzanne and I both used to work for the San Antonio River Authority. The Bear Regional Watershed Management Committee, I guess, is still active and alive and well, but that is primarily city, county, and Sarah staff. There was a Watershed Improvements Advisory Committee at one time that did have community citizens on it, provided input. That was dissolved a couple of years ago. Several years ago. So there was at one time a committee that had community input that was regularly involved. So this is really more bringing back something, maybe we don't call it the Watershed Improvement Advisory Committee, but something like that. So this would be reinstating that function.
And it didn't, the committee that existed before really did not work specifically on city projects. I mean, it was really more holistic. But I think in this case, this citizen committee recommendation would be largely to, advise the city on, its program, what it's doing, its investments, not necessarily a project, a citizens committee for the county or Sarah, or this would be a recommendation primarily around the city, although building on the input that could come from the San Antonio River Authority watershed master plans, or, if the county is having joint projects that they're bringing forward or have identified, of course, those could be presented and looked at holistically as it relates to projects that the city is also contemplating. So there's some opportunity to have some synergy between all the partners. But this would be more of a city committee in this case. Neffy, this map, could you explain this map? And I guess we had asked about a watershed. I know Gibb had asked for projects in the watershed. Did we get that done?
Yes, so the map that you have in front of you, there's a couple of things that I want to highlight to there. This map has some really good information. One, you're going to find the location of projects. So as you're looking for your individual projects, you're going to find them, and those are generally identified in a small red line with a number on it. And I know it's hard to see, We were trying to squeeze in a lot of information. The other thing you're going to see in, I want to call that purple line. That is what we refer to as a watershed. Those are the areas that drain to that area. So the one in the middle, in the center that you see there, that's the upper San Antonio River. It's identified there with upper SAR. That upper San Antonio, as you can see, extends from 1604 and then continues through the center of the page. To the right of the page, there's going to be another watershed known as the Salato Creek watershed, and it includes a number of tributaries that flow into the Salato Creek. So you'll see there's a few projects on the east side and northeast side of the city. To the left, you're going to see another watershed known as the Leon Creek watershed. And as you can imagine, it's all those tributaries that flow to the Leon Creek. And then on the far left side of the street of the page, you're going to see the Medina River, and that is and I believe there's one, maybe two projects that drain into the Medina River. The other thing that you're going to find is we included some shading within those areas, and those happen to be what we refer to as water quality zones. We work with our partner in the San Antonio River Authority to identify areas that contributed heavy loads of bacteria into the rivers and creeks. And their model showed that the area shaded in purple are areas that we recommend having a low impact development or a green infrastructure feature. So if the project falls within that shaded purple area, it is one that it is recommended that we have a green infrastructure included with that so as to reduce the amount of bacteria. And then obviously the rest is just the streets and highlighted some of the suburban cities.
All right. Right. Yes, ma'am.
May I ask one last question? Maria Tijerina, District 5. I was interested and wanted to get if the staff had any clarification regarding the Cali Field situation with the water. That struck me as concerning that they're not able to get clean water. Can you clarify that a little bit more? That it was brought up by one of the citizens?
I will tell you, I certainly am not an expert in that, but I do believe that's referencing the plume, the underground plume as a result of the activities that had happened at the military base there. There is some sensitive groundwater issues that extend underground through there. I certainly can't speak about the water issue. That's more of a San Antonio water system concern. I don't know if there's wells or what. My field is drainage and flooding, but I do know that that's related to the Kelly plume, if you've been familiar.
Yeah.
Minnie Abrego Sanchez, District 10. So the city oversees SAWS, y'all work together. So will someone from here be contacting SAWS about what was brought to the committee tonight?
The lack of water,
Or do we
the
have
lack
to
of
do it?
potable water.
Sure, we'll certainly get with our contacts at SAWS and make them aware.
All right. It looks like I think that's it. So if there's anything else that anyone wants to share, please let the city know. And we'll stand adjourned until Saturday.
Thank you,
What time
everybody.
again?
9 a.m. But
Not-
we leave at 9 a.m.
We leave at 9 a.m. from the one stop, so be there before 9 a.m.
That's right.
If you don't know where the one stop is, please let us know. I guess we'll be sending out final directions and also the final list of tour.
Suzanne, just want to say hello and well done.
Oh,
Is
thank
today
you.
your birthday?
No, it was Monday.
Oh, well, happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you.